Hello and welcome once more to the Leader Campus Voices. I'm Wildermuth. My interview today is with Annie Odom. And Annie is in change management as a reconnaissance helicopter pilot, which I'm sure I want to talk about a little bit, and a veteran transition advocate, which I think is quite interesting as well. So welcome. Thank you for agreeing to be interviewed at this time.
Yeah, no problem. I'm excited to be here and have a conversation about leadership.
Okay. So first of all, though, I want to talk about this veterans transition aspect that you're an advocate of. What might you want to say to leaders on the Leader Campus that have the ability to deal with hiring and firing, etc.? What about hiring or advocating for a transition from the veterans from the military into the private enterprise?
Right. So the first thing I want to make known is that not only am I advocating for transitioning veterans, I am a transitioning veteran. So that process is very scary for people that have been in the military for a decade, right? And that's all they know, and they're going into a new career field and looking to make strategic level impacts in society, and they don't know what they don't know. So what part of my goal is while I navigate this problem set of transitioning out of the military and into the civilian sector is to share what I've learned with other people who might be a little intimidated and overwhelmed as I was when I started this process. So the biggest thing that I've learned throughout learning and researching what there is, what I don't know into the private sector is that there's so many venues for veterans to get help with this process, and it's a very supportive, warm environment for people because companies want to hire veterans because they have these soft skills that are so needed. They are leaders. They've been combat tested and proven, and now we just need to teach them a new trade, right? So working through that process, it takes a lot of work and a lot of help from other people to civilianize your resume, right, or to make a resume. I haven't had to have one prior to the past year, right? So
yeah,
where do you start? And it is scary and challenging, but what I've learned is when you start building a network and asking people with informational interviews, what do they do with their job? Do they like what they're doing? And then you start to feel out what is your passion and what do you want to do outside of the military? So being a transition advocate for veterans is also, to me, important to help veterans through the process who don't know maybe where to begin and were lost about a year ago like I am. Why do people want to hire veterans? It's because they do have a lot to offer our community and our society, and they've done a very selfless thing for whether it's 2 years or 20 years, and now they want to take what they've learned in the military and have an impact in a different organization and be part of a different team and serve in a different way.
So you were a reconnaissance helicopter pilot, which was just really wild. I've never talked to a reconnaissance helicopter pilot before, so you're the first. But what do you think is your abilities then to transcend from the military as a helicopter pilot to the private enterprise?
So being a reconnaissance helicopter pilot was probably the biggest thrill of my life. Getting to fly missions in Afghanistan was awesome. But more so than being a helicopter pilot, I was an officer, or am an officer, and a commander in the Army. So I've had various levels of increased responsibility since I commissioned in 2010. And you have to lead people, and being in the Army is very much a people person, a people organization, because most of your job is trying to figure out how to build a team, how to get people to do things that they otherwise wouldn't want to do, how to get people to trust you because you're operating in a very high stakes, no-fail environment and people's lives are on the line. So transitioning from being a helicopter pilot in the Army, I think I take a lot of leadership skills and bring them to the table. I have been in a very unique situation where I've been in a very male-dominated environment before. I feel comfortable there, leading other people and really just facilitating buy-in in a team and trust between people in an organization to make them successful.
What what do you think is the best aspect of the military training that you get? What do you think is the best aspect?
I think one of the best things that has happened with my journey in the military is that it's really taught me that I'm really tough.
Okay.
Right? So going back a little bit, from when I was in high school, I was definitely not the person that you would say was going to join the Army. I did captain, I sang, and I danced, and I did precisely nothing that would make people think, hey, Annie's going to go, join the Army and go to West Point and be a helicopter pilot, right? So what it taught me being in the military is that your body can do a lot more than your mind can do, but you have to train yourself to be resilient. So I pride myself in being physically fit, but also more so than that is mentally fit, because we have to be able to do our job in very high stress environments where, it's not a comfortable place to be, and you still have to be your best. You might be exhausted, right? So overall, I think the biggest thing is that you can do anything you put your mind to, but you have to train your mind to be strong and resilient, and then your body will follow suit.
Oh, wow. How do you go about determining if you were put into a leadership position? Well, you've already been in a leadership position, but when you go into the private enterprise, if you look at an organization's effectiveness, how might that be something that you have advantage because you have been a military officer?
So first of all, organizational effectiveness, like defining what that is to me, is really assessing how effective an organization is at achieving an end, right? So there's a few things that go into that. It's the organization structure, the processes by which organization accomplishes what it needs to accomplish, and then the people, right? So looking at how to assess that effectiveness, there's a lot of ways to do that. You can, have a team come in and like very similar in the military, and test that and make sure you're doing your systems and processes in accordance with, how they're prescribed by your organization. But then also it's knowing your people, right? And understanding that. So assessing that, you have to give it a little bit of time. So for example, going into a unit as a new leader in the unit, we call them commanders, right? You go in, you don't like flip the table over and change everything just because you're the new boss, right? You take 30 to 60 days to understand how your unit works, and get to know your people and what their resident strengths and weaknesses are, and if they're being played to their strengths and helping work on those weaknesses. And then you go from there, right? You figure out what's going well, you figure out what might need a little extra work, and then you put a plan in place to fix those, whether it's structure, processes, or resident strengths of your people. So leadership and development of others is important, knowing your people, and then also talent management, making sure you have the right people on your team, or getting the people on your team the right schooling or advancements that they need to continue to be the best value added to the organization as a whole.
How important do you think is multiculturalism? I'm having trouble with that one. But how important do you think multiculturalism plays in any organization, military or private?
Well, I think it's super important. It's very important. The cool thing about the Army is, it doesn't matter if you're from a big town or a small town, what your ethnicity is, your religious creed, your sexual preference, your male or female. It doesn't matter who you are or where you came from. At the end of the day, you're a soldier, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the bottom line. And in all of my units, it was very important to me for people to have mutual respect of each other, and we had to be able to trust each other, regardless of if we all came from the same place or we had all the same opinions, right? But I think on top of multiculturalism, being in a unit where you facilitate differing opinions, differing views, which offer unique solutions to complex, complicated problems, the most important part is that you have inclusion of all of these different walks of life that are in your unit, so you can facilitate buy-in and then also get a good solution to a difficult problem that maybe you couldn't see by yourself, right? So, for example, some of the best ideas that I've had are from some of the lowest ranking people in my unit. And if they didn't feel included and that their opinion mattered and that their work was valued, then maybe they wouldn't have been able to share that solution to a problem. So multiculturalism is important, but even more so than that is ensuring that there is radical inclusion in your organization so you get the most benefit from the diverse walks of life that might be there helping bettering your team.
How did you go about in your position in the military of making people feel safe enough to be able to come with various ideas?
Well, the biggest thing for me is, understanding that you as a leader of your organization is that you drive the atmosphere and you drive the culture, right? So going into a unit as a reconnaissance helicopter commander, it's very, very cutthroat, very wrong, very high stakes environment because we had to be good. We took a lot of pride in what we did. So the biggest leadership challenge for me is to figure out how to make my guys trust me. And there were three things that I learned throughout my career in the military is that helped me as a 5'3", blonde-headed female helicopter pilot.
5'3"
and a half. The half-inch matters, right? So I'm almost 5'4". Not very tall.
My daughter's 5'4", and she's constantly wishing that she could gain just even another half inch.
Yeah. But you come in and, maybe people aren't used to seeing someone like you being the boss lady, right? So there were three things that I would do. And the first for me was be approachable, right? I didn't take everything personally. I wasn't too sensitive. And I wanted my people to know that they could come and talk to me. So it was important for us to get our job done and to do it really well the first time. But it was also important for us to have fun. And me being approachable to them, I think, kind of eased some of those tensions up front. As I mentioned earlier, being physically and mentally tough was important to me as a leader because I think it helped me make better decisions, but also for my team. So our day started at 6:30 in the morning, and we did some hard physical training. We'd run in the snow. We would do, a lot of things that maybe wouldn't be the best thing, but we challenged each other, and because we did that, we grew as a team and we got better, and they respected me because I'd never asked them to do anything that I wasn't going to do myself. So us doing some challenging training at 6:30 a.m. sets the tone for the day, and I told them that. You come here and you bring 100% in the morning, and then that's going to set the tone for our entire day, and it's going to be a good day. And then finally, I was very adamant about being competent at my job, but never to the point that I couldn't learn from someone that was smarter than me, right? So I don't know if you call that being humble or whatever it was, but I made sure that my guys knew that I was never going to be the smartest person in the room. And with the understanding that at the end of the day, I make the decisions, and once I make a decision, then we go with it, right? But getting advice from people that might know how to do something better than you or that have more experience than you, learning how to do it a better way was important. And I never made a big decision for my team without talking about it first and getting their advice. And I think that made my people really respect me, and then also facilitated ownership of our unit and our culture together. So getting that buy-in, getting that ownership was really important. And that starts with the leader. So being approachable, being mentally and physically fit, and then being humble enough to learn and to grow as a team, I think helps facilitate that buy-in that helps with that culture of excellence that we're all looking for.
Well, that's interesting because you're getting the respect for your men in the current situation or the current vibe. There has been a lot of sexual harassment, I can never think of it, sexual assault as well. Is that something that's in the Army that you faced and that may end up facing again in private sector? Well,
I mean, sexual harassment, sexual assault, is is prevalent. I would argue that it's not more prevalent today than it has been. I just think that statistically it's reported more, which is a great thing that, we're addressing that issue. I'm not going to say that I've never been sexually harassed before, right? But to me, I don't have to walk into a room and tolerate that type of behavior. And I didn't with my unit. I didn't see that with my unit because we do have a mutual respect for each other. But the biggest thing for me in the military is knowing that the person on my right or left, whether they liked that I was there or not, that they trusted me. And talking about the leadership skills that I've spent 10 years trying to, hone and figure out how to do Annie's leadership style, right? That facilitated trust because what we did at the end of the day were very life or death type situations sometimes. So facilitating that trust was important to me. As far as sexual harassment, there's a place for it. And I think the biggest thing that anyone can do as a woman in any type of environment is just to have a no tolerance policy about it. If something that happens is inappropriate, then it needs to be talked about and it needs to absolutely, be crushed so it doesn't happen again. And while I don't have a lot of experience with that inside or outside of the military, it is an issue. But I think, the best thing that we can do as men and women is to have a zero tolerance policy in regards to sexual harassment.
Now, there's a lot of things going on right now with authentic leadership also in any of the training, and I see about change management. How does authentic leadership play into your idea of leadership?
Well, so that's a loaded question, so I'll see how I go.
I didn't mean to make it a loaded question. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. It's exciting. So let me try to navigate through that. So like I said earlier, I was not the type that you would think would be, someone that wanted to go to West Point and be in the Army and do this helicopter thing and fly armed reconnaissance helicopters. Like, I was just not the one. So it was a culture shock a serious culture shock for me to go to West Point. And I was, pageants, and I did, singing, and I didn't walk outside of the house without my makeup on. And then I go to West Point where I'm a cadet and you're getting yelled at and, it's all part of it. And I'm just, I don't even know what to do. So I had a hard time because I'm like, well, how do I, as me, Annie, the bubbly, outgoing person that I am, fit my leadership style into the Army? Like, how do I fit this circle into a square? And it really perplexed me for a while because you walk into, when you first commission, you're a lieutenant and you don't have the same experience that the other people do in the unit, right? So you're coming in, you outrank them, but you don't have to sit down and talk to a 35-year-old man about his job performance, and you're 22, and you're not as great of a pilot as he is yet because you haven't learned, or whatever it is. So it's hard to figure out how to fit your personality into that type of scenario, but you can't be someone that you're not, right? So I learned that through 8 years of being in the Army, is that, I am a vibrant, bubbly person, and being unapproachable or trying to seem unapproachable, it doesn't work for me, because when I'm happy, I'm really happy, and when I'm having a good time, but when it's time to put your business pants on and get to work, then I'm serious, right? So knowing your own personality and letting that shine through, and talking about your strengths and weaknesses with your people is, to me, what authentic leadership is. So, hey, you can expect this when everything is on my face, right? So when I look upset, I'm probably really focused, or when I'm smiling, I'm probably really happy, and that's just me, and other people are different. But understanding what, one, who I am, and then two, my expectations of you, and then three, your expectations of me, what you can expect from me, is important, and not trying to, fit a circle into a square as far as your personality goes is important.
Well, you are a fantastic person. I get great vibes from you. And you. So what made you go to into the Army? What made you go to West Point? I mean, because you must be one of the very few women that went through West Point.
Well, there's more than a few of us. So I graduated as one of 136 women in the class of 2010.
I didn't know there were that many. Yeah.
Yeah, I was excited to have a statistic associated with that. But I think overall the academy is about 15% women, and they do work really hard to make sure that they do have all demographics represented, including women. But why I wanted to go to West Point and did that 180 on life, right? My dad was in the National Guard, and he deployed to Iraq in 2003 for 18 months. And it was very different for us as a National Guardsman. You're never gone more than 3 weeks out of the year. Sorry, dog. The dog's in the way.
That's fine.
He wants to play. And that was really tough on our family, like him being gone for 18 months at the start of the war. And I realized that's a huge sacrifice, not only for the service member, but also for their families. And I, spent a lot of time wondering, hey, is my dad going to come home? And if he does, like, is he going to be okay? And all these things. And I just realized that is such a selfless thing that he did for our country. And he served for 25 years in the National Guard, and then also to the state of South Carolina. And I knew that my heart called me to do something similar. And that I wanted to do that because I was capable of it, and that maybe in the process that I could affect some other people's lives in a positive way. So I saw an ad on TV, and it was not an ad, it was what are those things called? A documentary about West Point, and they were showing all the summer training and jumping off these things and just doing all this crazy stuff. And I told my mom, I'm like, wow, that looks really hard, Mom. I want to go do that. And she just kind of laughed. She was like, okay, honey. And then eventually she realized that I was serious, and we applied, and that was a really complicated process, but eventually got accepted for the class of 2010, and the rest is history. Stop.
Okay, well, I guess we'd better stop too. But it's been fascinating talking with you. And have you been able to secure a position yet?
No, my transition timeline, I still have about 12 months left in the military, and then what I'm hoping to do is pursue an MBA at a good school. I'll be attending Tuck's Next Step program for a 2-week certification in March, but my next big plan is really just to pursue my master's in business administration, and then get into the consulting space and see where my vision takes me from there, and hopefully it's doing something that affects a lot of people in a positive way.
Well, in 12 months, I think that somebody ought to hire you very quickly. You're a fantastic person to talk with, and you have lots of things going for you, I can tell. So congratulations to everything that you've done thus far. Thanks for your service to the country and to all of us in general. And I don't know what else to say. Is there anything you want to plug before? Because I always give people a chance to plug something as a reward for being interviewed.
I don't work for anyone yet, so I don't really have a big plug. But the one thing I would like to say is if you are a transitioning veteran and you're lost and you want to talk about some ideas or some things out there for you that can help facilitate your transition into a new career, please shoot me a note, shoot me an email, and let's set up a time to talk about it. And I don't know everything, but I know a few people that know more things than me, and I'll get you set up hopefully in the right direction, and we can grow and learn together.
Would you mind then if I put your email address up on because I always put captions. So would you mind if I put your email address up there?
Oh, yeah. No, that'd be perfect.
Okay. Then fantastic. Thank you, Annie. I appreciate it. And best of luck to you in all the future. And I hope that it will be a great transition for you to go from being a veteran to the private enterprise. Thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.